Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today is going to be a big book haul because September was my birthday month and things got a little crazy. So I have 24 books to share with all of you that I hauled. In my defense, in terms of buying books, and really there's no need for defense, but I did recently unhaul close to 40 books. So I am trying my best to navigate balancing buying books, but when it's your birthday and you get gift money or people want to send you something, and really the only thing that comes to mind is books, you end up with more than you probably planned on. So I have quite a few new additions to the shelves. I'm going to share them with you all today. I do have categories in which I'm going to share them. Really, they're just arbitrary categories, like these are the people who sent me gifts and these are the ones that I blame them for gushing about so much that I wanted to buy them. So there are going to be just silly little categories for these books, but basically we're just going to keep it fun and I'll try and talk about why some of these made it to my shelves. But I also do want to apologize if I sound a bit congested. I am fighting a mild cold at the moment, but life goes on. Let's dig into these books. Also, if you see me shifting around throughout the video, it's because I am going somewhere else to get the books. I don't have a whole lot of space on my desk, so I don't want to stack them all up for them to all fall over because that is a book collector nightmare. First up is one that was kindly gifted to me by a cousin that I reconnected with, and this is The Witcher, Blood of the Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. Now, this is obviously a very popular series. It is a classic, I guess you might call it. I have heard a lot of mixed things about this, and I am curious to try this series. I have been for a while, but because of the mixed feedback, I'm not sure how I'm going to find this, if I'm going to enjoy it, if it's going to be not for me. I am eager to find out though, because I did love the TV series, and I know the books are always different from the adaptations, so this will definitely be an interesting experience. And just thank you so much to my cousin who was very generous and gifted this to me. I am excited to see why you enjoyed it so much. The next one was also gifted to me by my very good friend Tori over at Tori Talks. If you have not checked out her channel or her books, you absolutely should. This is the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa, and this has been on my wish list for quite a while. It's not as big or dense as I thought it was going to be. For some reason, I felt like this was going to be a chunker. Clearly, I did not read the book description. But this follows a cat by the name of Nana as they go on a trip with their owner to visit some old friends of their owner, and it's all told through the cat's perspective. There is a little blurb I want to read to you because I feel like this captures what I expect this book to be in a beautiful way. We take journeys to explore exotic new places and to return to the comforts of home, to visit old acquaintances and to make new friends. But the most important journey is the one that shows us how to follow our hearts, which I'm really excited to read this. I've waited a long time to dip into it, and from the sounds of it, I will be in for a moving read. The next four here were gifted to me by my loving husband, so huge kudos to him because we went out to just spend some time in the bookshop, and maybe I had a plan of maybe finding one book to bring home, and it turned into whatever I touched he would stack into a pile. So there were a couple I had to get him to put back because there's a point where it's just too much. But we did come home with four books that he very graciously bought me. Now, the first one has a little story attached to it, and I will get to it, but this is Nemesis Spawned Reflections of Shadow, Book 1 by James W. Lackey, and this is a debut for the author. This is an indie self-published author, and basically the concept behind this and how it was sold to me was Dexter in fantasy tale, so a very sociopathic kind of character. in a epic fantasy story. So the whole little thing of how I came across this was we were in the bookshop, we were just shopping around, and as we're looking through the shelves, a gentleman comes up and says, "I highly recommend this one," pointing to these books on the shelves. To which I looked at the book and I looked at the gentleman and thought, I have to ask, are you the author by chance? And he said yes. So this author had just come in that morning, which was a weird coincidence time because we weren't expecting to run into anyone that was putting their books on the shelves in the Indigo on a Monday morning of all things. And so I got a chance to chat with this author, to ask about their book, ask a few questions, hear more about their writing, which was fascinating to hear about. And so I picked up the book, and very kindly, he signed it for me as well. Now, where I'm at, it's not often you find an indie book in Indigo itself. It's a big brand store, very similar to Barnes and Noble's, but it's not often you see a local author in the store and a local author's book on the shelves. So it was just a delightful treat. And the sales pitch of Dexter Meets a Fantasy Tale, yeah, I just had to try it. I needed to see what this one was about. So aside from fantasy, I also read a little bit of philosophy, Buddhism, those kind of topics, because I do like to try and keep my brain working as much as I can until it kaputs and it needs a nice comfort fantasy read or sci-fi read. In that case, I have been trying to read a little bit more on Stoicism, and so I decided to pick up Epictetus' Discourses and Select Writings as just the things that I have heard reiterated from Epictetus's teachings, his writings, sound fascinating and beneficial, essentially. So as an individual, I'm always trying to learn and get better no matter what it is in my life, and reading these type of books helps me in terms of giving me perspective, of giving me essentially just a different view into life. And the fact that these have survived as long as they have throughout history is even more fascinating. It gives us a different look into culture, history, perspectives from their time and place in the world. So yeah, I just was very curious about this one. I had seen it highly recommended as one of the Stoics' teachings. So yeah, I'm going to be giving this a try. And for anyone who leaves a comment about Stoicism or what I should read, in case you would like to make some recommendations, I have also picked up Marcus Aurelius Meditations, because again, that is one of the biggest recommendations that I've seen as well. I also saw some recommendations for this series, and I wanted to give it a try. His Majesty's Dragons by Naomi Novik, which is book one of Tamara. Now, this is an author I've had mixed feelings on over the years. Now, keeping in mind that this is over a decade since I've been reading this author. I absolutely adored Spinning Silver. I've been wanting to read more of those stories. But when I initially found this author, like I said, about a decade or more ago, I had mixed feelings about their writing, and it could have just been where I was at the time, the type of book it was, or, I was not in as an experienced place in terms of my writing to have much to compare it to. So I wanted to give this a try. I've heard many great things about it: dragons, valiant warriors, just the kind of good old dragon style fantasy that seems worth a try. Plus, knowing how beautiful Naomi Novik can capture fairy tales and the eeriness and the setting and the atmosphere, I am very excited to see how this turns out. The last book that my husband very kindly purchased for me was Yumi and the Night Painter by Brandon Sanderson. Now, this is one, I've enjoyed Brandon Sanderson's writings. I've read the Mistborn trilogy. I read The Way of the Kings, and I'm looking forward to continuing with Words of Radiance. But I wanted to wait for this to come in paperback, and mainly because of cost. There's only so many hardcovers that I can justify buying, especially with the Broken Binding subscription, which just destroys book budgets. And if you are familiar with the Broken Binding, I'm sure you're feeling it too. But if you're not familiar with them, go check them out. They have a lot of beautiful books. But the other thing is that sometimes there's just something so satisfying about reading a floppy paperback. Just, it's, oh, it's gorgeous. So yes, I was waiting for this to come in paperback for a few reasons. I've heard great things about it. I enjoy Brandon Sanderson's writing. So yes, this is one that had to make it onto the shelves to go along with my Sanderson collection. The next few were actually thrift finds. So I found these relatively cheap, down to $1 to $3 a piece. So yeah, I figured why not? I've been hearing about them, or it sounded really interesting, so why not give them a try? The first one is actually one that I've been wanting to read for quite a while. I've heard amazing things about it, and yet I've never seen this cover for it, so I figured I may as well get it considering it was $1, and that is Ted Chian's Exaltation. I have never seen this cover design for it. I'm sure it's out there, and I'm sure some of you will probably consider this the base one. This is the cover that I've typically seen for it, and while it's okay and while I like it, this is just stunning. I love the artwork with the lungs and all of the trinkets and whatnot inside of it. So yes, I just wasn't anticipating to find a different kind of cover, especially secondhand. Those are hard to come by in Canada where I'm at. Now, part of what intrigues me about this book is the combination of things in terms of it being told in epistolary format, which is essentially journal entries. It's a sci-fi and follows a fabric seller from Baghdad who has to grapple with jumping through portals in time and resisting the temptation of second chances. So it sounds fascinating. It sounds like it might be a bit more of an emotionally heavy read or a thought-provoking read, which of course is all intriguing to me. Next is Shadow and Claw by Jean Wolfe. Now, this is one I have heard amazing things about, from both the author to the story to their writing and just all of it. So I do understand it's probably going to be one that takes a lot longer to get through, from my understanding of it being a bit more of an elevated fantasy in terms of the literary experience. You just need to pay more attention instead of just binging action, if that makes sense. And so I'm curious. I figured for $2 or $3, and I mean, it looks in good condition, but there is a big rip in the middle of the cover. For $2 or $3, I am absolutely willing to give it a try and find out just what all of the thoughts are on it, where everything is coming from on it, because it does pique my curiosity, and if it is what I think it will be a great read for that moment when I'm just looking for something with a bit more of a itch to the difficulty and challenge in terms of reading. So we'll see. We'll see where that one goes. The last one in this category was The Way of the Wizard, which is just essentially, it seems to be a short story anthology, but there are quite a few big names that are listed on that main cover. The back says, "We all want it, they've got it. Witches, warlocks, sorcerers, necromancers, those who peer beneath the veil of mundane reality and put their hands on the levelers that move the universe. Enter a world where anything is possible." So this is just sounds like a nice palate cleanser in terms of dipping into a short story every now and again, giving it a try, and just seeing what happens. The next category, again, these are all just arbitrary categories, are the I blame you for making me buy this, for gushing about it so much that I needed to find out why you loved it just as much as you did. The first one is Asunder by Kirsten Hall. This was gushed about by Esme Rosalind. If you have not followed Esme already, you absolutely should be. Esme is a fantastic reviewer, and she just obliterates my TBR far too often. This is a great example of it, so I absolutely wanted to give it a try based off of her recommendation. For all of these, definitely go check out the book's descriptions to see if they are good fits for you, but basically this is, from my understanding, an eldritch horror fantasy mix, maybe a little bit of psychological aspect to it as well. but it absolutely sounds thrilling and perfect for the spooky season. Hyperion by Dan Simmons is next, and this is based off the recommendation of Aaron M. Payne, or known as Bibliotheory on his BookTube channel. Definitely go check him out. He also just released a new book, so go check that out as well. This is another series that I've heard about for a while. It's just been one of those books where you hear about it so often, it's kind of just in the back of your brain, and I just haven't picked it up. But he has talked about it so highly, and when we ended up chatting over a live stream interview, I had the chance to ask him about it, and everything he said piqued my curiosity more so than all of the other things that I had heard about it. Basically, I, again, want to find out what the hype is on this series, so I figured why not give it a try. Mass market paperback is also a great way to go in terms of cost, but yeah, my eyes are going to be sore. Absolutely. I'm not old. I'm just at that stage where small print is, I just can't sit down and read for 4 hours like I can something else. I'm not old. The last one is courtesy of Tori Talks yet again. This is Song of the Beast by Carol Berg. Now, this is a fantasy series, some dragon fantasy going on here, but delving into more female fantasy authors, which is just always a joy to find as well. She highly recommended this. I believe she did a buddy read on this one too. So sometimes when a good friend who reads very similar books to you just gives you a recommendation or gushes about a book, you buy it. That's the only logical course of action. You buy it and you read it, so you can find out what all their love for it is. So this is going to be one of those reads for me. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not really doing book descriptions in this book haul, you can absolutely look up the book descriptions to find out more for yourself. I'm just reading the book descriptions on the back, and I don't think that's going to be interesting or entertaining. I can try absolutely to do just an overview of some of them that I do think I have a good grasp on what the story is about. But at the end of the day, more often than not, I've read the back of the books, their descriptions, and if I haven't read it, I am terrible at describing what the story is about. I feel like I am in no position to try and explain it any better than the book's description. So yeah, if you're wondering why I'm not delving into book descriptions for all of them. The next category is just I had gift money and went crazy. So I just picked books that have been high on my priority list. TBR sounded interesting. The first one is actually one I picked up while I was in Newfoundland, and I do love these style of little books and picking up a book on your trips, whether it's vacation or you're going somewhere new. This was Tales I Was Told, and it's a short story collection from a variety of different authors from the Maritimes. And basically, the concept of this is that each author tackles a story that they were told as a child that they knew growing up, and they can either put their own spin on it or they can tell a story about their own family. And I think this is just a beautiful way because that is really the origin of how stories started. It was all, as far as we know anyway, oral and passed down from family member to family member. To also hear some of these stories of people from the Maritimes, their life, or the just folk tales of that area is fascinating to me. So yes, this is a short story collection and it's quite lovely. It has little illustrations throughout it too. And again, these are from Newfoundland and Labrador, specifically in Canada, and it contains 15 authors who each wrote their own little short story. Keeping on these short stories, I also picked up Tales of Lunis Aquaria by Tessa. I'm going to butcher the last name. I did it last time I did a video with her books. Hastajarjanto, Tessa Hassett. I'm putting it on the screen. I butchered it too many times. I'm so sorry, Tessa. But Tales of Lunis Aquaria. And again, this is a short story collection. It looks like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 short stories in here, and it follows the world of Lunas Aquaria in disarray as mysterious powers surge across the lands. Meet the adventurers who will face the trials to come. So basically, yeah, we're following different perspectives of this world put in chaos, basically. And I've been interested in Tessa's writing for a while, so I felt like this was a good time to try some short stories by the author. Again, I am so sorry about getting the name terribly pronounced. One day I will get it. One day. Someone help. Next is a novella, and that is James's Journey to Dreamland. This is by Ronald McGilvray, a bedtime novella. I have known about this author for a few years, and I've been hesitant to try their writing, mainly because they write horror, and just off of some of the reviews talking about graphic details or graphic scenes or violent scenes, I was hesitant to pick them up. Horror is not my main genre, folks. I am an absolute chicken. I do love horror elements in fantasy, but an entire horror book designed to scare you and make you want to keep the lights on wherever you walk. Yeah, I appreciate that there is a love for the genre. I am too much of a scaredy cat. But this, though, I realized the author was local to me when they used a bookstore I frequent called Reread Used Books. Just made a post saying that they had a delivery of books. I went in to check them out, realized that there was a probably least scary one that the author has written, and yes, I bought the least scary one. It's just one of those things where I want to try the author's writing. I've heard good things, but yeah, the being a chicken definitely was a bit of a roadblocker for me. But this one, I will read a little bit of the back here. James is an ordinary boy, except the fact that he can't sleep. That all changes the night a magical train comes through his bedroom closet. That just sounds whimsical. I imagine there's probably going to be some consequences and things that goes on throughout the story. But yeah, it just sounded like a nice way to dip my toes into the author's writing without having to sleep with the lights on. Next is The Doll Makers by Lynn Bushana, and this has been catching my eye quite a lot. It's a cozy dark fantasy, which I just adore in terms of tone and storytelling. It also just has incredible artwork and illustrations to it. And the tagline for it is "Doll makers protect the country called One. One doll maker may be its downfall." So this just sounds, I mean, the cozy, the eeriness, the darkness of it, and it's got illustrations throughout. I just had to give it a try. So yes, I ended up picking up The Doll Makers by Lynn Bushana. Next, I ended up picking up Valor by John Gwynne. I am planning to start Malice in the last bit of this year, so I wanted to have the sequel ready and on hand because I love the Bloodsworn saga, and I feel like Malice is going to be the kind of book it's best experienced by diving into the series continuously, and I'm trying to get better at continuing and finishing series. So I got book 2 so that I could just dive right into it next after I finish Malice. The next one is an author you've already seen here, and that's Naomi Novik, Buried Deep and Other Stories. This is a short story collection that was recently released. Again, I just want to try more from this author, but partly the sales pitch in terms for me with short stories is that you get to see the strengths and weaknesses of the author on full display in short stories. Short stories are hard. It is so hard to get a reader's investment in a story, character, world building. You have to introduce it all and make it a compelling story, all within a short page count. And I feel like short stories really test an author's skill and challenges them in that regard. So one, I want to read more from this author, but I feel like this will be a great way to just see how the author writes, where they excel, and try other worlds that they've written, other stories that they've done, because Naomi Novik has been writing for a long time. So I'm curious to see, and these short stories expand throughout various worlds and series that they've written. So this will be a good way to, again, just see where the author's writing style is. If it's for me, I'm really curious, and I love the short stories. So yes, I wanted to get this one as well. The next one should be no surprise because I absolutely adore this series, and a new book in the series came out. That is Eyes of Empire by JCM Byrne with our favorite superhero, Rohan. This is book 5 now, which is just crazy to think that there are 5 books in this series, but I am so happy. Like I said, this is turn 5 or book 5 in the Hybrid Helix series. One of my favorite series. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you love sci-fi superhero type stories. Think Dragon Ball Z and Guardians of the Galaxy and just Invincible and all those kind of superhero stories that you love, with a fantastic Canadian superhero main character. So yes, this is book 5. I'm so excited because we meet a new type of creature in the story, which you can kind of see in the cover here. Whenever JCM Byrne publishes a book, you should expect it in a book haul. Next, we have The Fall of Selvandria by T.J. McKay. This is another author who is local to me, and I was very lucky to meet up with a couple times for coffee. And I managed to get the first ever signed copy by the author, which was incredibly sweet of them. So this is volume 1 of the Dramir Chronicle, and I'm going to read the snippet on the back because I just feel like I can't do these justice. That's why the description's there, people. It's to do it justice. So it says, full of dragons, monsters, found family, magical weapons, intense duels, and epic battles, The Fall of Selvandria follows a vigilante's quest against malice. So yes, this is one that I have been looking forward to quite some time. I've had the opportunity to chat about this book and the series with the author themselves. Definitely go check it out. And recently I also interviewed the author here on the channel, so you can go watch that. I'll leave a card up top for you if you're interested in the chat as well. The last category and the final 4 books on this book haul are review copies. Now, historically, I have not included review copies in book haul videos just because I rarely do book haul videos. I typically do YouTube shorts, just either unboxing or showing them off. So this is a first on the channel for including a category in terms of book haul for review copies. Now, these 4 books were sent to me by the authors in exchange for an honest review. The first one, however, was sent to me by Palmer Pickering on behalf of the author, and that's The Wrong Stop by Rex Burke, a sci-fi caper. This just looks like good old sci-fi adventurous fun, and from what I've seen in the reviews, with good banter and just a fun, good read, a good sci-fi, I just wanted to give it a try. It's one of those things where sometimes you need the lighter, funner reads, still having the adventure and the danger and the thrill and all of it, but something that's just a bit more fun. And I mean, depending on how much free time I have, you could probably binge this in a couple days. One of the reviews, for example, on the inside says, a hilarious first contact story filled with wry humor, laddish banter, and many laugh out loud moments. So this is going to be one that I'm probably going to dip into sooner than later because we all need a good laugh along with the adventure. Next is Falling into Oblivion by Erin M. Payne, who is also got the channel Bibliotheory and added Hyperion to my TBR. This is Erin's debut. It is a cyberpunk detective type novel, and I'm just excited to read his writing and see where this story goes. It's different. It'll be a different genre in terms of the cyberpunk for me, but I am very curious about this cybernetic dragon and this detective with the chain whip in a cyberpunk setting. Again, the reviews sound interesting and, I mean, fun and fast-paced from the start. Core cyberpunk, cross between Dresden Files and Blade Runner. I want to check that out. Thank you for sending it my way, Erin. Next up is Imbued by Helena L. Clove. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing your first name wrong there. Basically, this is a duology. This is book 1 in the Imbued duology, and it's different from what I can gather from the description. Magic was always going to be my downfall is the tagline here, and it starts off with a main character who has no memories in a world where magic is essentially, it sounds like, outlawed, and people who exhibit magic are hunted down, as there are mage hunters, for example. And Kala, along with her lack of memory about who she is, also has magic stirring in her. So this, from what I've read in terms of reviews and from what I can gather, is going to be a bit of a fever dream of a book, and it's character driven as well from what I've heard. So I'm intrigued. I'm very much intrigued as to what this fantasy holds in store and what will happen to these characters, because just from the description alone, if you go and read the description, there seems to be more than meets the eye. Finally, the last book in this book haul is a brick. And it's a chunky book. It is around 670 or 80 pages, so it's not the biggest book in the world. However, its physical copy is hefty, to say the least. That is The Wingspan of Treason by L.N. Bayan. This is book 1 in the Strumsinger Chain series, and it's heavy. It's a heavy book. It's a fantasy as well. And the tagline on the back of this is "Truth is a knife, loyalty's a cage, no one is innocent." Another one of the taglines which really caught my attention was "Invilmar, a great kingdom boasting unrivaled peace and a brutal grip over the known world. A kingdom built on blood." This is just... it sounds like one of those fascinating, in-depth fantasy reads with depth at every turn, whether it's world building, character, plot, and it absolutely piqued my curiosity. So yes, I'm very grateful for the author for sending me a physical copy to dive into. And the author is also an artist who does their own maps, and every chapter heading has a different piece of artwork to it, including detailed maps. It's just a beautiful book in person, and I believe all of those are part of the ebooks as well. This is releasing, I believe, on November 26th, so definitely go check it out, see if it might be up your alley, and potentially add it to your TBR, because I mean, we all need a good TBR buster. And that's the last book in this book haul. Thank you so much to the authors, to my loving family and friends who sent gifts, gift money, and just added to my hoard of books. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. And of course, I would love to know which ones made it to your TBR. What one in particular caught your eye the most compared to the rest? Leave your comments below. I always love hearing from you. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.